welcome to all of you to our today's webinar. My name is Dirk Kalinowski. I'm the Deputy Network Manager of Aerospace.NRW and your moderator today. Let me start by saying some words about the organization and the agenda of our today's webinar. We will start with a presentation of around about 30 to 40 minutes. During that, please mute your microphone. If you have any questions already during the presentations, please use the chat function so that we can address them in the discussion afterwards. And during the discussion, do not hesitate to ask questions, raise your hand and make yourself heard. But that should it be from my side, because you're not here for me, but because of our guest today. As always, we have a high-level guest who will introduce us to an exciting topic. We are pleased that we have been able to win Dr. Fabio Maffei today to introduce us into the supply chain in aviation. If I were to list all of Dr. Maffei's activities, I would still be talking tomorrow. So let me just briefly mention only 4 points. I have to take these pieces of paper here. He has a background in engineering and business, so he's familiar with both worlds. He is, as you've heard, a doctor in aerospace engineering. He holds different degrees in engineering, management of complex systems, and business administration. He has 20 years international experience in the aerospace industry, holding managerial roles in engineering, consulting, strategy, and sales. And Dr. Fabio Maffei is here today because he is in charge of business development at thyssenkrupp Aerospace for the DACH region and surrounding countries. The title of his presentation is today Relevance of Control Towers to Bring Transparency and to Enable Dynamic Collaboration in the Aerospace Supply Chain. It's a long name, but I think, or a long title, but I think it's a short while presentation. So Dr. Maffei, welcome again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dirk, for the kind presentation, and thanks for having me here today. I'm very, very pleased to share some notes and highlights out of our experience in the industry. I start sharing my video, my screen. Just tell me if you can see it.
Now we can see your PowerPoint. If you switch to the presentation mode.
Yes, it should be start now.
Perfect.
Good. So I found this very interesting picture to start in because I see two relevant things in this picture. I see a positive thing and I see a negative, or better, a challenging one. The positive is that aircraft are flying back. Air transportation, according to the last data, is coming up to only minus 22% with respect of the pre-COVID level. And it's expected to recover to pre-COVID level fully until 2025. And of course, I see also something challenging here, and it is the environment of this industry, the situation of the market in the industry that has a lot of uncertainty and a certain level of risk. And from here, it comes basically the topic, so that you already mentioned, the relevance of a control tower in bringing transparency and collaboration in the supply chain. I structure the talk in this way. I will give you initially a first short introduction about thyssenkrupp Aerospace, just to give you an idea of what we are doing, and also a kind of lenses for this discussion today. The main topic has been divided into three main parts. In the first part, I give you an overview on the German aerospace market and supply chain, and also a short outlook into the future. In the second part, I will mention some of the most important challenges of the supply chain that you for sure know. But what captured my attention, where I would like to turn your attention, is the change of a paradigm towards risk management, risk mitigation, risk management, and resilience. And then finally, in the third part, I would go explaining the role of thyssenkrupp into building internally and also delivering for our customer transparency and enable collaboration to tackle those challenges. So shortly about thyssenkrupp. thyssenkrupp is a multinational, differentiated, conglomerated business made up of a group of technology company. It's active in 6 business segments, namely the material service, industrial components, automotive technology, steel, marine system, and other business. The core of thyssenkrupp lies into the material business, which represents about 30% of the overall yearly turnover of 30 billion. And thyssenkrupp Aerospace belongs to thyssenkrupp Materials. But I love to say that we at thyssenkrupp are a kind of special because in what we deliver. We deliver, in fact, customized, modular, and scalable solution for the supply chain in aerospace industry. And the unique, what makes us unique and what makes us relevant for this industry is that we put together high knowledge, expertise, and knowledge into 3 main areas. It is the material business, a deep knowledge of the supply chain, where we act as a supplier and where we act as a customer, and also deep knowledge and expertise in supply chain management. In a nutshell, thyssenkrupp Aerospace has a global footprint over 20 countries. It's leveraging more than 250,000 square meters of warehouse and production space, and we are serving more than 3,000 customers in this industry. We deliver 3 business models that are able to deploy for our customer increasing level of transparency and customized value. This business are material distribution, where we basically buy, store, process, and supply materials for the customer. The second model is the 3PL. thyssenkrupp Aerospace is not a logistic provider, but we offer and deliver a lot of service for the management of both internal and external logistics. And up to the third model of 4PL and global control tower, where we basically manage the supply chain of ecosystem, we manage the supply chain ecosystem of our big customer, OEM and Tier 1. But let's have a look at the German aerospace market and its structure. That's, I think, relevant and very interesting. All in all, the aerospace and defense market accounts for about 50 billion revenue per year that are expected to grow for the next 5 years at a 7% annual growth rate. It's more than 80% based on commercial business, but it's also cover the defense and MRO. In terms of supply chain, the supply chain in the German market is extremely fragmented. It's made up of around 220 customers, companies focused on the aerospace industry. But this number grows to more than 2,300 if we consider other smaller company, other companies that have also present in aerospace industry, but they play in other industries. What is interesting is that more than 65% of these this company has a small size. They have revenue of less than 10 million per year. Only 3.5% has revenues above 250 million per year. So basically, the industry is made up of a few big players, OEM and Tier 1, and a lot of medium and especially small players, small companies. In terms of demand, the supplier base served primarily the major player in the industry, that is Airbus. Although they have participation into a project for other OEM like Boeing, Bombardier, Comac, and so on. But the major player is Airbus. And we know, fortunately, that Airbus has increased, has started a ramp up, a challenging ramp up. On the supplier side, is clear that the industry is facing some constraints in terms of capacity, in terms of transportation disruption. But I think the most important thing, and probably the challenge of this industry in the German market, it's its structure. It's extreme fragmentation. It's also, I would say, give kind of liability when it comes to, let's say, optimize collaboration or transparency and synergy across the industry. And these are relevant point in the present situation of the supply chain, as I will mention in a few seconds. But it's also a market with opportunities and with presence in newborn and I would say promising market like the urban air mobility or the new space. So it's absolutely interesting, relevant market for the industry and central in its role for Europe. If we want to have a look or give a look into forecast anticipation for the future, we see that on the short term, we have a minimal impact. So production for 2022 is considered not, let's say, secured at a certain extent. But if we consider the possibility of a prolonged war crisis in Russia or Ukraine, then we can expect some medium and long-term negative impact. By the way, the drivers, so the main elements that are I would say making this industry driving and leading are different. There is, as I mentioned before, an increased demand from one side. There is on other side some I would say constraints in terms of capacity, both at bill level, at labor level, but also at capital level, so to finance the supply chain. There are also some disruption in transportation. There are long lead times because of limited freight capacity, increasing energy and transportation costs, and also shortage and disruption in the supply of titanium. There's also a hidden, I would say, secondary effect that could impact the industry, and it's related to the more than 500 Russian leased planes that could, in case of retaliation of the crisis, may be moved from the leasing company from Russia to Europe, and so partially saturate the demand for new aircrafts. But all in all, as mentioned, in the short term, the outlook is stable with some uncertainty for the medium and long term. It's interesting also to note that this impact could be on both negative impact could be on both the demand and the supplier side. So basically, if the war in Russia and Ukraine will continue, so if the high price level of oil combines with the negative macroeconomic condition, then we could expect a reduction in air traffic demand. From the supply side, if the crisis continue, then we could expect, let's say, extension of tightening commodity supply that could also limit the producer capability to supply and respond to the demand. So this is all in all the overview of the German market, just to give us the context in which we are going to place the challenging and topics that are following. So let's move to the main challenges of the industry. We know that the COVID has represented a tremendous event, a tremendous game changers. We might talk of a world pre-COVID and a world post-COVID. The impact was not only on the industry, but also on human level, as we know, and they are still there. But what is interesting is, let's say, the separation in the paradigm of supply chain management. Basically, before the pre-COVID, we might say that the major requirements from supply chain were mostly focused on the paradigm of supply chain optimization. So cost reduction, optimization of our processes, which also led to the major trends in the past of globalization and starting of digitalization process to enhance automation and increase efficiency. And these trends have also led to a strong centrifugation and I would say fragmentation of the supply chain. After COVID and after the disruption that came after and are still running on different levels, we basically are now into a perfect storm, where a combination of pandemics, disruption, war crisis, trade wars, and changing regulation are making the environment extremely VUCA, extremely uncertain and volatile. So now the supply chain management has shifted the focus more onto the management and the mitigation of the risk that are out there. There is also another topic that's related to the technology. So the COVID has also generated an acceleration of innovation in technology and also products, new products, that are leading to a structural change of the supply chain. This is not only the only reason for the structural change of the supply chain, it's also changed because of the negative impact of the COVID. But from, I would say, innovation point of view, we might see that, for example, I mentioned before, some new market like urban air mobility or new space, or the need to respond quickly to the climate emergency, as pushing innovation forward, as it's changing basically the supply chain because of the new technology or because of new entrants in the industry that need to build their supply chain from scratch. And this supply chain will not be similar or be equal to the old one. It will be a new supply chain. If we look at, I found this slide very interesting. I mean, the information conveyed in this slide very interesting. It comes from a report from McKinsey, and it's showing, from my perspective, two things. The first is the negative impact of disruption into the supply chain. And we see, first and foremost, that the most negatively impacted industry is the aerospace, with 67%, circa 67% of profit losses that should occur toward cycles of 10 years. But in this report, there is also the information, and this is also interesting, that disruptions, crises, it's the new normal. And they have to be factored in the supply chain of the industry as a design requirement, as a design criteria. So now the supply chain has to be designed for resilience. So designed to resist the disruption, but also to recover the disruption. The resilience, in fact, in the context of supply chain, in the context of a complex system like a supply chain, is the capability to remain connected and to survive in the face of disruption. Intrinsically into the aerospace industry, supply chain, there are elements that make the industry vulnerable to resilience. And the two major of them are the extreme, would say, number of the suppliers per aircraft, and also the risk-sharing partnership that brought to an enormous supply chain that is very much centrifugated, globalized, and so exposed to resilience vulnerability. Also, the consequence of this dispersion, this fragmentation of the supply chain is the bullwhip effect that is recorded by more than 60% of the supplier. And it consists on the amplification of the order quantity from the end customer towards the supply chain and along the time. Mostly related to lack of coordination, poor communication among the parts constituting the supply chain. These are the objective parts, but also related to some, I would say, objective and psychological behavior, human behavior in front of uncertainty. There are many strategies to face resilience. I would say all the strategy mentioned in this picture are executed at a certain extension or another from different suppliers, from multi-sourcing, near-shoring, manufacturing network diversification, and so on. Probably the easiest and the most straightforward strategy is, of course, building buffer. But we all know that this is extremely costly for the supply chain. So what should be the answer to resilience, in order to build resilience and to build a risk management function across the supply chain? Well, now we come to the third part of the presentation, and basically the role that thyssenkrupp as a leader in the industry is taking to building and to delivering transparency and collaboration inside and across the supply chain. One way we have to tackle the challenge is by building and delivering dynamic collaboration inside the supply chain, inside our supply chain, but also inside the supply chain, fostering this collaboration inside the supply chain of our customers. And on the other side, by building and delivering the transparency, that is the powerful ingredient to build a solid risk management function across the supply chain. And how we are doing that? We're doing that by delivering our portfolio of services, including our control towers. So basically, our control towers become the enablers of that transparency, of that cooperation models and agreements and contracts to ultimately deliver the value into the supply chains in terms of major efficiency, capacity to manage and mitigate the risk, the capacity to move in advance and to avoid or prepare for disruption better, and to finally deliver a supply chain that is quick in decision making and fast in the execution. But as I mentioned before, when we talk specifically about the German market, we talk about a very fragmented market with companies of different size, where we have different requirements and where the value lies in different parts of the supply chain. And this is the reason why we build a completely customized solution for our customers, regardless of their size, their dimension, their volume of business, but only according to what they need. Here you see basically a rough mapping of our service and business model across the different tier level and industry segments in the German market, and represent the level by which we are, let's say, aiming at building the perfect solution for the specific needs of our customers. How we do that? As as all our customers know, we love to play Lego, and basically we do that playing with our customer, collaborating with them from day one, and building together the solution that they need, nothing more, nothing less. We can build that modularly and across, I would say, two dimensions: the dimension of the value chain, so from planning to procurement, supply chain management, up to inbound logistic and delivery, but also across design, management and execution, different phases of our customer journey or maturity of specific projects or endeavor. Here, I would like to show as a last point of discussion and presentation, basically some examples. The first one is focused on the planning, procurement, supply chain management solution that we deliver for one of our major customers. And here you can see our control tower acting as the single point of contact between the customer, the end customer, and its supplier base, in this specific case made up of more than 300 customers, and also acting as a single point of contact between the supplier base and the mills. Here we deliver value in terms of efficient inventory management, high efficiency in the process and material utilization. And this is something that we can achieve through technique or like part nesting or multi-part nesting. This is just an example to show you one of the concrete value that we can deliver. Of course, there are a major value of acting as a single point of contact for our customer, that they can focus on their core business, where we deal with the management of their supply chain. Here, another overview of the portfolio of services that we deploy into the 3PL area. So basically services that range from inbound and outbound processing, inventory management, up to returns management. And here an example of a transportation control tower, where we manage for our customer the complete transportation system. So from partner supplier, starting from the dispatch of the order, process notification, up to the ship, and up to even to the reporting and the recording and notification to all parties involved. And of course, the management of the different third parties logistic provider. And I think that is all from my side. I think I was probably quicker than the planned 30 minutes, but yeah, very looking forward to your question if you have any clarification and any point from your side.
So thank you, Dr. Maffei, first for this very interesting presentation. Now we can start the discussion. As you said, is there a first question? Who wants to start? Raise your hand, unmute your microphone, ask your question directly. No one will be the first. Okay, then let me start first. Within the last slides, you've talked about polymers, about aluminium, and at the beginning, you've talked about titanium. Can you explain a little bit more in the way you help your customers to overcome these challenges? You've mentioned the actual challenges now and the challenges by COVID and the interruption of the value chain or the supply chain. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, with pleasure. Thanks, Dirk, for your question. Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, titanium shrinkage and shortage in the supply chain is primarily linked to the fact that Ukraine and Russia are among the major supplier of this metal. It represents about 50% of the supply to Airbus and Boeing. So basically, it's a very critical and strategic material, and its shortage is going to generate additional disruption if the crisis in Ukraine is not solved in short notice. But what we are doing together also, I mean, there are something that is done already at the customer level in terms of, I would say, mitigation strategy. Major customers, so major players like Airbus and Boeing have their reserve stock of titanium. And this will make basically the risk limited for this year. But what we are doing and what we usually do for our customer in some circumstances with our control tower, because of there are two elements, two things that we leverage to support our customer in dealing with this stuff. The first is the control tower in itself. So the level of internal and external connection and inflow of information that we have with the supply chain of our customer, with our supply chain, that allows us to get quicker insight and also faster and broader access to the material. But also in our control tower solution, in our contract agreements with our customer, we act always in a proactive way. So it means that our control tower not only designed to manage, let's say, the supply chain as it is, but it's also there to plan in advance, to move in advance, to create alternative sources for the material well in advance to face with any disruption. So this is the way, leveraging our internal network that has give us to access to different sources, leveraging our contract with the supplier of the material, leveraging our knowledge and connection inside the supply chain of our customer. This is the way.
And I don't want to ask you, because I don't expect really an answer for that. But do you have an idea, or when do you expect that we will come, not to the good old days, but perhaps to a new normal?
Well, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's absolutely like reading in the crystal ball. I mean, it's from some respect. I mean, there are some positive signals that are from the market, as mentioned, related to a concrete ramp up, increase in production rates from Airbus, a little bit less from Boeing. There is an increase in travel demand, so the demand is there. I mean, there are some big clouds in the horizon that are related to the uncertainty of this war and also the implication at macroeconomic level. Personally, I think that the estimation, I mean, if the war doesn't escalate and does not prolong for too much, the forecast of having a recovery back to pre-COVID level in 2 years is pretty much realistic and reliable. But again, there are question marks on the geopolitical scenario and on the macroeconomic level.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Maffei.
You're welcome.
It shouldn't be a discussion between two of us. So we are open to your questions. I assume that everything is well known. There's a question of Mr. Batschke.
Yes. Thank you for the nice presentation. I have a question regarding the optimization of the complex supply chains that you mentioned in your presentation. In order to optimize the supply chains, are you also thinking about or already are new technology in use, such as quantum computing, to optimize or to solve such complex optimization problems? Or what techniques or processes do you use for it?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. It's a very interesting question because it triggers also the discussion onto the other, I would say, strategic action taken from thyssenkrupp Aerospace, I mean, to navigate into this industry. And it's related to the digitalization. We have started internally different initiatives to build up, I would say, the digital infrastructure, the digital solution to improving the transparency, the connection, the transparency, the performance of the supply chain. These initiatives are also done in some cases in a partnership with some customers, and have for sure in terms of technology a focus on artificial intelligence and predictive algorithms. I cannot say that much about the specific of these projects, but the answer is yes, there are the build-up of the growing of our digital capability and capacity for internal purpose, but also for our customer. Because we are player inside this industry, we also have our supply chain. And of course, as I mentioned before, we need to build, and we are building internally this capacity. While we're building that internally, we are offering that to our customers.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
This is Norbert Schröder. I have a question. This concept of supply chain management, do you use it only for the aerospace industry, but also for your other branches?
I mean, thyssenkrupp Aerospace is focused on the aerospace industry. So what discussed here is, let's say, as a focus on the aerospace industry. But as a part of material service, we serve in the material service segment customer in different industry. So concepts are, let's say, used and will be used more and more also into other industries.
Do you know if other tier one suppliers have a similar strategy? Because for the small and medium enterprises, and you know that there are a lot in the German aerospace supply chain, of course, they can follow you with your strategy, but if the others have another way, how will this work at the end?
Well, I see here the key words, and I would say the magic word is I'd say the collaboration. And I explain you what I mean exactly. I mean, we at thyssenkrupp, as a leader player into the material distribution supply chain management, are connected, are part of a big network ecosystem into the supply chain. And means that we can, let's say, deploy this strategy or this supply chain management concept and deliveries to big customer. But we also have smaller companies that are our customers. So directly and indirectly, the added value of our control tower, our transparency and connection across the supply chain is anyway transferred also to the smaller players. Of course, when we talk about a smaller company with, I mean, they are not going to build, I mean, so far they are not interested to build any control tower, but our solutions are very, very modular. When I talk about control tower, we don't have to think only to big solution for big players. Of course, those are the best expression representation of that. But our solutions are very, very customized. So for the specific need of our customer, we can build the right solution. I give you an example. There are customers where they are small in terms of volume. Yes, they are small, but they have a complex product, and so a complex supply chain, small supply chain. And also for those smaller customers, our, let's say, mini control tower can deliver its value. Because in managing that complexity, this represents also valuable delivery, so a valuable delivery for our customer. So in the very end, is a matter of collaboration. When we talk about fostering collaboration with the big players, it also brings me to another topic that it's important. This is the contractual way we close and we manage the collaboration. So basically, when we deal with a big customer, we can, let's say, structure a contract agreement with the customer, so what we call a master service agreement. And then we can attach the specific needs, the work package, or the specific task or needs of the supplier that deliver into the customer. So we build through our connection towards the big customer also ecosystems of other suppliers that can benefit from the participation into these big contracts. And this is the way that we concretely transform the collaboration. So we deliver the dynamic collaboration into the supply chain, because we are connected with both sides of the supply chain, the bigger customers, but also the supply chain that have to serve the big customer. Another concrete example I can give you is related to one of our customer, major customer in the helicopter business. And in that specific case, we can put, let's say, the subcontractor or facilitating the enablement of those suppliers for big customer, so giving them the access to better price for material, better condition. Of course, belonging to the thyssenkrupp as a customer, it also gives the advantage of accessing our contract power with mills. So again, our solutions are not only thought for the big players, but also for the smaller one. Of course, when we are able to build together this collaborative structure, contractual structure with OEM and subcontractors, that is the point in time where we can deliver much of our value. I hope I could answer your question, Norbert.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So are there further? Yes, Mr. Köster?
Yes, I have another question, because we already had the topic of the digitization. My question would be, what about for example, the digital twin? Because if we are talking about organizing complete value chains, and I think in the end that's what you do, could something like a digital twin help you and make maybe even the digital twin concept even bigger? Because if you say, okay, we need a turbine, and the concept, the digital twin knows, okay, for a turbine, I need, I don't know, 50 kilos of aluminum, and I need a laser and whatever. Does this help you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, this is a very good question. I think very, very relevant, because I would say part of our vision, our business vision, our CEO, Mr. Maru, is to realize this digital twin. Digital twin is a target for us because of its relevance for not only mapping the product, so as you mentioned, but also to have the exact twin of our supply chain, both internally and then for our customer.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So it's time for me to thank again Dr. Maffei.
Thank you, Dirk,
for being here today and for answering the questions. And I don't want to leave you today without one information to the next event. That's a trilateral cluster exchange. If you are interested in other regions, for example, this is here in Schlesien and in Südmähren in Czechia. If you want to know more about these regions, I want to invite you to our next webinar at the Twin in 14 days, 2 weeks, at the 20th June of 2022. That's in collaboration between Senate, us, and different clusters from Poland and from Czechia. So you are always invited to participate at that event again. So for more details and registration, please have a look here to the website inno-aerospace.b2match.io. I can send it to you after that again. As perhaps you've seen, we've recorded this webinar and we will bring it to our website. So if you've got, or if you want to hear it again, to want to hear different other things, then don't hesitate to contact us. We will bring it to Dr. Maffei. All your questions, you have it here to bring you in contact.
Pleasure.
And so for me, for us, I only have to say thank you for participating again today to all of you, and have a nice weekend. Oh, no, have a nice evening.
A nice rest of the week.
Yeah.
I would also to
right.
thank you, Dirk and Hendrik, for having me today for this opportunity. Very welcome to looking forward to answer your additional question, and the audience anyway to reach out to me also directly on LinkedIn for any further question that you might have or interest to additional information about what we are doing or how we can help at thyssenkrupp Aerospace. Thank you again. Thank you all.
Thank you.